The forest was silent except for the distant rumble of artillery, a constant reminder that the war had not paused for my small, desperate mission. Every step I took was measured, careful, memorized from weeks of reconnaissance. The map never left my mind, each ridge, each narrow pass etched in my memory like a living document. I could not allow a single slip. Thousands of soldiers depended on these invisible routes, on the corridors I had traced from the shadows.
Suddenly, the crack of a rifle shattered the hush. Pain flared in my shoulder. I stumbled, pressed myself against a tree, breath coming in ragged bursts. The enemy had been waiting. My hand moved instinctively to destroy the small notebook I carried in my coat pocket, a decoy for less critical information. They would find nothing. Not the map. Not the routes. Not the corridors I alone remembered.
Drop the weapon. Step away from the forest line. You are surrounded. There is no escape.
My legs refused to obey. Panic clawed at me, but the memory of the map forced me steady. I had to survive, not for myself, but for the men marching blindly, trusting in what only I knew. Captured. That was the word that defined me now, the moment when every secret, every route, every life I had sworn to protect hung on the edge of a knife. The transport was cold, metallic. Each jolt of the vehicle pressed reminders of vulnerability against my ribs. I counted breaths, memorized their cadence, the positions of every guard, every sound in the corridor. Questions would come. Interrogations. Deceptions. And I would not give them the map that never existed on paper.
Who sent you? What was in the courier? Do not lie, or the consequences will be severe.
I smiled faintly, a small, controlled gesture. There was nothing to tell. Nothing they could take. The map lived only in me, and they would have to kill me to get it. Every detail from the reconnaissance, river crossings, artillery positions, the treacherous ridges, flashed in my mind. I repeated them silently, over and over. A mantra against fear. The detention cell smelled of damp concrete and anticipation. I was alone, or so I was told. Isolation was part of their method, break the mind, break the will. But my memory was a fortress. Every night, every plan, every calculation played across the confines of my mind with ruthless clarity.
Sleep. Rest. Your mind will serve you better. But remember, silence will not save you forever.
And so I rested, but only superficially. The corridors of memory ran deeper than any cell could contain. I traced routes, redrew boundaries, counted distances. In the darkness, I felt the weight of thousands of lives resting on a single, unspoken map. Each thought was a choice. Survival versus duty. Loyalty versus secrecy.
Days passed. The interrogations became predictable, a rhythm of question, pause, insistence. The officer observed me closely, watching for a slip, a tremor, a flicker of fear. And in that observation, a strange tension formed. A forbidden proximity, unspoken, dangerous. Every glance carried risk. Every gesture, meaning. And yet, I had to maintain control.
You understand the value you hold, do you not? One word, and the entire front could shift.
I nodded, but only slightly. The knowledge was a weapon. My memory, a fortress. And I was a prisoner, but not yet defeated. The mission had not failed. Not as long as the map remained alive inside me. And somewhere, beyond walls and barbed wire, the soldiers would march on, oblivious to the one who carried their path in mind alone.
Tonight, I would be tested again. One misstep, one detail too much, and the map would be lost, not in ink, but in blood and memory. And the war would not forgive me.
The room smelled of damp stone and stale air. Light fell through the barred window in pale, thin lines, cutting the shadows into sections. I sat motionless, recording every shadow, every creak of the floorboards in my memory. They wanted documents that did not exist, evidence that could not be seized. And I was everything they did not yet understand.
You will speak eventually. It is only a matter of time. The pressure is unavoidable.
Every hour passed like a test of endurance. Isolation, questioning, the subtle manipulation of hope and fear, this was their method. I repeated the map in my mind endlessly, routes and corridors intertwined with rivers, ridges, enemy positions. No paper, no ink. Just memory. And the officer, calm and methodical, watched every micro-expression. Every twitch of my eye, every hesitation, catalogued.
Your silence is noted. But understand, we will use whatever means necessary. Every detail matters.
I leaned back, calm on the surface, mind calculating. Each conversation, each glance from the officer was a thread I could weave into a strategy. The slightest hint of vulnerability could cost thousands of lives. Yet, in this oppressive, stale cell, a strange tension grew between us. Forbidden. Dangerous. A connection that could have ended in a word, a touch, a glance too long.
The officer spoke rarely, carefully. Authority wrapped in restraint. Every phrase measured, every pause calculated. I mirrored that, words chosen, silence deliberate. In this game, trust was lethal.
You comprehend your position. Do you imagine escape, or have you accepted the inevitable?
Escape was never an option. Survival was tactical, a layer of the plan. The map lived within, untouchable, unyielding. Every corridor, ridge, river crossing replayed in endless loops. I was a vessel, a memory keeper, the silent protector of the offensive yet to come.
Days blurred into nights. Guards changed, meals delivered, questions asked and unanswered. I measured the shifts, predicted patrol routes, memorized every subtle sound that might signal danger. The mind became sharper than any blade.
You seem calm under pressure. Do you not fear for yourself, for the path you guard?
I did not fear death. I feared the consequences of failure, the men who would walk into ambush, the offensive destroyed before it began. My role was memory, strategy, and patience.
Then came the first signal. Intercepted communications, coded, urgent, words I could not speak aloud. The offensive would begin imminently. Enemy forces shifted subtly, preparing, probing, testing. Every moment of silence became critical.
They move soon. Every route you guard will be tested. Your cooperation is expected.
I made my choice. Partial truths, misdirections crafted in precise measure, to delay, to protect. The corridors would remain unseen, the soldiers safe, the offensive alive. But each deception carried risk. The officer would notice, eventually. Yet it was already too late.
Tonight, the game changes. Every word, every glance, every heartbeat becomes a move on a board that neither of us can see fully. The first test of survival, loyalty, and the fragile, forbidden connection begins.
The first light of dawn filtered through the barred window, thin and unyielding. I could hear the distant rumble of artillery, each echo a reminder that the offensive would begin soon. My body ached from hours of motionless waiting, my mind tense from calculations too vast for a single memory. I traced the map in my head once again, rivers, ridges, artillery placements, hidden paths, every corridor alive in memory. This was no longer mere survival. This was strategy, danger, and deception intertwined.
The officer entered without a sound, his presence commanding, yet measured. My pulse quickened. Every interaction had become a battle of wits, of control, of silence. Forbidden tension lingered in the air. One wrong move, one word too long, could destroy everything. And yet, I had to act. I had to maintain composure while crafting misdirections that could protect the offensive from enemy interference.
Today, your choices will determine the course of the front. One misstep and the lives of thousands could be lost. Do you understand what is at stake?
I nodded slightly, a mask of calm hiding the storm inside. Partial truths had to be deployed like precision instruments, fragments that seemed real enough to mislead, but never enough to reveal. The map existed only in my mind, every detail vital, every omission deliberate. I rehearsed each response internally, each pause a calculated move, each glance a statement of control. Failure was not an option.
Time passed like a slow, unyielding current. Hours blurred into days. The officer questioned, I answered with fragments designed to mislead. Each word, each hesitation, a thread woven into a web of survival. I measured him as he measured me, calculating his reactions, his suspicions, his restraint.
In the quiet moments, when he stepped away, I replayed the map in minute detail, the river crossing at grid 31, the forest ridge near the enemy's artillery, the narrow defile that could funnel troops into ambush. Each corridor, each passage a lifeline for the soldiers who would march unaware of my captivity. I repeated these routes silently, over and over, a litany of memory that kept the offensive alive.
Your resilience is impressive. But time is against you. You know the offensive is imminent. Will silence continue to serve your cause?
I did not answer immediately. Silence itself was a tool. Then, carefully, I allowed hints of misdirection to slip, a partial truth here, an omitted detail there, enough to confuse, enough to delay, enough to preserve the routes. Each revelation, each omission, was a careful chess move designed to protect the soldier's path. The officer's eyes narrowed. He sensed the manipulation, but he did not yet know its extent.
Hours turned into night. Every shadow became a test of awareness. The officer observed the smallest details, the tilt of my head, the tension in my fingers, the rhythm of my breathing. Each gesture carried risk, each glance a potential revelation. Forbidden tension simmered beneath the surface. A dangerous proximity developed, mutual acknowledgement of the stakes, the shared confinement, the unspoken understanding.
I repeated the map endlessly in my mind, committing every detail to memory, narrow passes, hills, rivers, artillery zones. Each repetition was a reinforcement of control, a barrier against fear, a pledge to the men marching into battle. I imagined them moving along the unseen paths, each soldier stepping over ground preserved in my memory alone.
You hold knowledge that could change everything. One slip, one error, and the entire front could collapse. How do you justify this silence?
I justified it with duty, with loyalty, with every fragment of strategy stored in my mind. Partial truths became my weapon. Misdirection became my shield. The offensive had to proceed. The soldiers' lives depended on it. And the officer, calm and precise, was both a threat and an unintentional ally in this silent war of observation.
The night deepened. Every sound, every footstep, every whisper of the wind against the walls became information. I mapped the room, the patrols, the guards' rotations in my mind, rehearsing contingencies for every eventuality. This was a battlefield of the mind. And at the center, the invisible map pulsed like a lifeline. By midnight, the breaking point approached. Every calculation, every partial truth, every flicker of forbidden tension had led to this moment. Dawn would bring action, and with it, the test of loyalty, strategy, and survival. And I was ready, though fully aware that the war's tide would not pause for me, or for the fragile connection that had formed in captivity.
Dawn broke with a muted glow, pale over the distant hills. I felt it in my bones, the offensive was moving, carried on the memory I guarded. Every ridge, every river crossing, every hidden path I had memorized now became a lifeline for the soldiers advancing blindly into the chaos of war.
The officer entered, eyes sharp, scanning for any indication of deceit, yet I met his gaze evenly. The silent tension between us had not dissipated. Forbidden, dangerous, palpable, the bond of proximity and mutual understanding lingered.
The operation has begun. We will see if your resistance was worth the risk. Every detail you withheld will soon matter.
I remained calm. Inside, the storm was fierce. Partial truths, misdirections, memorized routes all converged in this critical hour. The soldiers' footsteps, unseen by me, moved along the paths I had protected. Every heartbeat, every breath in that cell was a measure of the outcome I could not witness.
Outside, distant sounds of artillery and movement reached my ears. Enemy forces repositioned, probing the routes I had misdirected them toward. The gamble of deception had worked so far, but each second carried the risk of discovery.
The officer studied me. Calm, controlled, yet tension radiated from him. For a moment, I saw not just an interrogator, but a man aware of the gravity of the war, aware that the outcome now rested on a single mind, mine.
We will find out soon whether your choices preserved or doomed the offensive. Your silence may have delayed the inevitable, but can it change the outcome?
I did not flinch. My mind replayed every route, every river, every ridge. The memory of the map had to serve as both guide and shield. I had already sacrificed the chance of release for the greater good. Every decision, every deception, every silent heartbeat was for the soldiers I would never see.
Hours passed. The distant sounds of battle grew louder, then closer. Enemy defenses collapsed along the preserved routes. The offensive succeeded, a testament to the memory I alone carried. Yet, the victory was not mine to witness. Captivity remained, a reminder that duty and survival often diverge.
Weeks later, the war ended. I was recovered in a prisoner exchange, weakened, changed, unrecognizable even to myself. My sacrifice, my memory, my choices had altered history, yet left no record of me. I had preserved lives, preserved strategy, but the cost was my identity, my freedom, and the simple certainty of who I had been before capture.
The officer who had interrogated me never knew the full extent of my sacrifice. Our forbidden bond remained unspoken, a fragment of humanity in a war that had demanded everything else.
Victory was measured in lives saved, in battles won, in territory gained. Yet some victories are invisible, existing only in memory, in the silence of those who carried the burden alone. And in that quiet truth, I found my place, not celebrated, not known, but necessary. The war had taken much from me, but it had also left the truth: some sacrifices are greater than recognition.